My son called the surgery that would save my life a waste of money and refused to give me back the $300,000 I had lent him. So I took everything from him. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. Mr. Soto, your heart is in critical condition. Without surgery, you have 3 months at most. Dr. Ramirez's words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. I gripped the plastic arms of the hospital chair, my knuckles going white against the beige armrests. The fluorescent lights above buzzed like angry insects, casting harsh shadows across her computer screen where my death sentence glowed in digital clarity. She turned the monitor toward me, pointing with her pen at dark patches that looked like storm clouds. These blockages here and this major one, they're cutting off blood flow to your heart muscle. We need to perform a triple bypass immediately. The room tilted slightly. I blinked hard, trying to focus on her face instead of the medical images that spelled out my doom. How much time do I need to arrange things? The surgery needs to happen within 2 weeks. Any longer, and she let the sentence hang in the sterile air between us. My phone felt heavy in my pocket as I pulled it out with shaking fingers. The banking app loaded slowly, each second stretching like hours. When the numbers finally appeared, they might as well have been written in a foreign language. $23,000. My life savings accumulated over decades of working oil rigs in the Texas heat. The cost will be $300,000, Dr. Ramirez continued, her voice maintaining that professional sympathy that doctors perfect. Full payment is required before we can schedule the procedure. It's hospital policy. 300,000. The number echoed in my skull like a gunshot in an empty warehouse. I stared at my phone screen, willing those digits to multiply, to somehow transform into the fortune I needed to keep breathing. I don't have that kind of money. The admission tasted like copper in my mouth. She pulled a manila folder from her desk drawer, the sound of paper sliding against paper unnaturally loud. Then I'm afraid there's nothing we can do. I'll need you to sign this treatment refusal form. Wait, what about payment plans? Insurance? Something. Her head shook slowly, methodically. Your insurance covers routine care, not major surgical procedures, and our financial department doesn't offer payment plans for surgeries of this magnitude. I'm sorry, Mr. Soto. The form appeared on the desk between us like a death certificate waiting to be signed. My chest began to tighten, a preview of the pain that would eventually kill me. The fluorescent lights seemed brighter now, more hostile. I stood up too quickly, my vision swimming. The medical papers crinkled in my hand as I folded them into my jacket pocket. The antiseptic smell of the hospital suddenly made my stomach turn. There has to be another way, I said, but Dr. Ramirez was already reaching for her next patient's file. I pushed through the glass doors into the Texas heat, my mind already working on a solution I'd never considered before. My Ford pickup sat in the hospital parking lot like a faithful old dog, its blue paint faded to gray in places where the Texas sun had worked it over for 15 years. I fumbled with the keys, my hands still trembling from the conversation with Dr. Ramirez. The engine turned over on the third try, coughing to life with a sound that reminded me how everything in my world was wearing out. Highway 35 stretched ahead through the afternoon heat, a ribbon of asphalt cutting through San Antonio's industrial sprawl. The radio played some country song I didn't recognize, the singer complaining about lost love and whiskey. I reached over and switched it off. The silence felt better, gave me room to think. Traffic crawled past strip malls and auto repair shops, past the kind of neighborhoods where people like me lived paycheck to paycheck. But my mind wasn't on the scenery. It was traveling backward, 3 years into the past, to a conversation that had seemed so simple then. I pulled into a roadside rest stop, needing to collect myself before the memories overwhelmed me completely. The parking lot was nearly empty except for a semi-truck and an old Buick with Florida plates. I kept the engine running for the air conditioning and pulled out my phone. The contact list glowed on the screen. Marcus, son, sat there in alphabetical order, right where it had been for years. I touched his name, and suddenly I was back in my kitchen 3 years ago, sitting across from my boy at the same wooden table where I'd taught him to do homework 20 years earlier. Marcus had spread real estate papers across that table like he was planning a military campaign. His hair was shorter then, more professional, and he'd worn that confident smile that reminded me so much of his mother. "Dad, I found the perfect house," he'd said, his eyes bright with excitement, "but I need help with the down payment." The memory played out in perfect detail. My coffee mug half empty and growing cold. The morning light streaming through the kitchen window, illuminating dust motes that danced between us. Marcus's voice, earnest and persuasive. "This is a loan, not a gift. I'll pay you back as soon as the construction business gets stable. You know I'm good for it." I'd looked at my son, 32 years old, ambitious, building his own company, and seen the future I'd always dreamed of for him, a future I could help create. "How much do you need?" I'd asked. 280,000. The number had staggered me then, but Marcus had been so confident, so sure of his plans. "The house is in Alamo Heights, Dad. Property values only go up there. It's an investment for my family's future." I'd cashed out everything. Retirement accounts, certificates of deposit, even the small inheritance from my father's estate. It had taken 3 weeks to liquidate it all, but I'd done it without hesitation. My son needed help, and I had the power to provide it. Now, sitting in this rest stop with death's timeline ticking in my chest, those numbers took on a different meaning. $280,000. Almost exactly what I needed for the surgery that would save my life. I put the truck in gear and made a U-turn, heading toward Alamo Heights instead of home. The wealthy neighborhoods on the north side of town, where my money had bought Marcus his piece of the American dream. A McDonald's appeared on the right, one of those newer ones with the fancy interior design. I pulled into the drive-thru and ordered black coffee, needing something to steady my nerves. The teenage girl at the window had braces and kind eyes, reminding me that the world still contained innocence and hope. The coffee was too hot and tasted burnt, but I drank it anyway as I navigated through traffic toward my son's house. Each mile took me deeper into neighborhoods, where the lawns stayed green year-round and the cars in driveways cost more than most people's annual salaries. "He's my son," I told myself as I turned onto his street. "My only son. He won't let me die." I parked behind Marcus's BMW and walked toward the front door, rehearsing words I'd never imagined having to say. The doorbell chimed a complex melody that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Through the frosted glass panels, I could see movement, a shadow approaching. The door opened to reveal Marcus in a navy polo shirt and khakis, his feet bare, a look of mild surprise creasing his features. "Hey, Dad." He glanced at his watch, a gesture so automatic it seemed unconscious. "What's the surprise visit about?" "Son, I need to talk to you. It's important." He stepped aside, but his body language remained guarded. The entryway opened into a living room that showcased everything my money had helped buy. Leather furniture arranged around a stone fireplace, family photos in expensive frames, a chandelier that cast prismatic light across hardwood floors. Marcus walked to a built-in bar cart and poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey from a crystal decanter. The amber liquid caught the afternoon light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. He didn't offer me anything. "Have a seat," he said, gesturing toward the couch with his glass. I settled onto the leather cushions, feeling underdressed in my work shirt and faded jeans. The contrast between his casual luxury and my careful poverty had never felt sharper. From somewhere deeper in the house came the sounds of family life, Anna's voice in the kitchen, children's laughter, the domestic symphony I'd helped orchestrate with my life savings. The hospital papers crinkled in my jacket pocket as I shifted forward. "Marcus, I went to the doctor today. The cardiologist." His posture straightened slightly, but he remained standing by the bar cart, maintaining the physical advantage of height. "Everything okay?" My heart's failing. The words came out flat, matter of fact. "Without surgery, I have 3 months to live." The whiskey glass paused halfway to his lips. For a moment, genuine concern flickered across his features. "Jesus, Dad, How much will the surgery cost?" $300,000. They want it up front." He took a long sip of whiskey, buying time to process. Anna appeared briefly in the doorway connecting to the kitchen, caught sight of us talking, and quickly retreated. Her children's voices called for her from another room. "That's a lot of money," Marcus said finally. "You remember the money I loaned you for this house? I need you to pay it back." The change in his expression was immediate and profound. The mild concern evaporated, replaced by something harder, more defensive. He set his glass down on the bar cart with deliberate precision. And what exactly do you expect me to do about that? The question hung in the air between us like a challenge. His tone carried an edge I'd never heard before, sharp enough to cut. The afternoon light streaming through those expensive windows suddenly felt harsh against my skin. Something in his voice made my chest tighten. This wasn't going the way I'd hoped. Marcus stood up abruptly, the whiskey sloshing in his glass as he began pacing around his expensive living room. His voice rose with each step, the professional veneer I'd always admired in him cracking like old paint. "Dad, don't you understand? That money went into my family's house. It's not just sitting around waiting to be returned." I remained seated on his leather couch, my hands gripping my knees as the reality of his words sank in. "But you promised to pay it back. You called it a loan." He laughed, a sound bitter as burnt coffee. "That was family help, not a business transaction, and frankly, surgery at that price is a waste of money." The words hit me like a physical blow. My chest tightened, not from the heart condition, but from something far more painful. "How can you say that? I'm your father." Anna appeared in the doorway again, her face pale as she witnessed her husband's cruelty. The children's voices had gone silent somewhere in the background, as if they sensed the poison filling their home. She opened her mouth as if to speak, then closed it and looked away. Marcus stopped pacing and turned to face me directly, his expression cold as January morning. "You've lived long enough, Dad. I need to think about my own children now. Their future matters more than extending yours by a few years." My breath came in short gasps. The pain in my chest was real now, spreading down my left arm like fire. I tried to stand but stumbled back onto the couch, my vision blurring at the edges. "Get out," Marcus said, walking to the front door and pulling it wide open. The afternoon heat poured into his air-conditioned sanctuary. "Get out of my house and don't come back with these ridiculous requests." I struggled to my feet, one hand pressed against my chest, the other gripping the couch arm for support. Anna watched from the kitchen doorway, her face a mask of shame and fear, but she said nothing, did nothing. Just like her husband, she chose the safety of her comfortable life over basic human decency. The walk to the door felt like a mile. Each step sent shockwaves through my chest, but Marcus showed no concern, no flicker of the son I'd raised alone after his mother died. He stood aside as I passed, not offering help, not softening his stance. "You're making a mistake," I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. "The only mistake I made was believing you'd understand priorities," he replied. I fumbled for my keys, the pain in my chest competing with the pain in my heart. The engine turned over, and I drove away from the house my money had built, leaving behind the son who'd rather watch me die than sacrifice his comfort. The drive from Alamo Heights to the south side took 20 minutes through traffic that blurred past my windows, like a fever dream. My chest still ached, but not just from the heart condition. Marcus's words echoed in my skull with each heartbeat. "Waste of money." Those were his exact words about saving my life. I pulled into a vacant lot beside the old oil derricks, where I'd spent 30 years of my life. The skeletal metal towers rose against the evening sky like monuments to honest work, their shadows stretching across cracked asphalt where weeds pushed through like stubborn hope. Sitting in my truck with the air conditioning running, I opened the glove compartment and found what I was looking for. A manila envelope containing old work photos and documents I'd forgotten were there. My hands shook as I spread them across the passenger seat. There I was in 1905, 24 years old and proud, standing next to a drilling rig with a crew of men who'd become my family. Oil-stained coveralls, safety helmet pushed back, grinning like the world belonged to us. In the background stood a younger Hank Miller, my work partner for 15 years until the wells dried up and the company moved operations to West Texas. Another photo showed me at Marcus's high school graduation, both of us wearing suits that cost me a week's wages. I'd been so proud that day, watching my boy walk across that stage knowing I'd made it possible. Every scholarship application I'd helped him fill out, every late fee I'd paid to keep him in school when money got tight. The most painful photo was from 2022, Marcus and Anna at their kitchen table, signing the house papers while I sat across from them with my checkbook open. I remembered the conversation with perfect clarity now, every word etched in memory like commands carved in stone. Dad, I'll pay you back as soon as the construction business gets stable, Marcus had said, his hand on my shoulder like we were partners in something noble. This is a loan, not a gift. I promise you'll get every penny back. Hank Miller had been there that day, helping me move furniture afterward. He'd heard every word of Marcus's promise. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to Hank's contact. The call connected on the second ring. Vernon, how's retirement treating you, old friend? Hank, I need your help. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. Remember when I loaned Marcus money for his house? You were there when he promised to pay me back. A pause. Then Hank's voice turned serious. Sure, I remember, Vernon. You made it clear it was a loan, not a gift. Marcus shook your hand and everything. Said he'd pay you back as soon as he could manage it. I need you to be willing to testify to that, if necessary. Of course, buddy. That boy made you a promise, and a promise is a promise. What's going on? I found a small notebook in the center console and began writing as I explained my situation. Hank listened without interruption, his breathing growing heavier as I described Marcus's refusal and cruel dismissal. That ungrateful little snake, Hank finally said, after everything you sacrificed for him. By the time I reached my house, I had a list of 3 lawyers' names and a plan that would make Marcus regret the day he called my life a waste of money. I'd spent the night going through every document, every piece of paper that proved Marcus owed me money. The kitchen table looked like a war room by dawn, covered with bank records, canceled checks, and correspondence that told the story of my financial sacrifice. Sleep had been impossible anyway, with Marcus's words echoing in my head and my chest tight from stress. The law office building downtown was one of those old structures that had seen better decades, with creaky floors and windows that hadn't been cleaned since the Clinton administration. But the building directory showed what I needed. Gordon Hayes, family law, 3rd floor. The elevator had an out-of-order sign, so I climbed the stairs, my breathing labored but my determination solid. Hayes's reception area was modest but clean, with family law pamphlets arranged on a coffee table and certificates on the walls that spoke of experience rather than luxury. The receptionist, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes, told me Mr. Hayes would see me in a few minutes. When the office door opened, Gordon Hayes emerged with the confident stride of a man who'd fought battles in Texas courtrooms for 3 decades. Average height, graying hair, wearing a suit that had seen many court appearances but was still respectable. His handshake was firm, his eyes sharp as they assessed me. Mr. Soto, please come in. I understand you have a family matter that needs attention. His office was functional rather than fancy. Law books lined the walls. Family photos on his desk showed grown children and grandchildren, and his Texas bar certificate hung in a simple frame. This was a working lawyer, not a showboat. I methodically spread my documents across his desk. Bank statements showing the $280,000 withdrawal, copies of checks made out to Marcus, correspondence about the house purchase. Hayes examined each piece with professional attention, making notes on a legal pad. Mr. Soto, the key question is whether we can prove this was a loan, not a gift, he said, looking up from the paperwork. I have every bank record, every check I wrote for his down payment, I replied, tapping the stack of papers. Plus, there's more. Excellent. Do you have any witnesses to your arrangement? My friend Hank Miller was there when Marcus promised to pay me back. He heard the whole conversation. Hayes leaned back in his chair, his expression shifting from cautious interest to confident optimism. Then we have a strong case. Family members often claim money transfers were gifts, but witness testimony changes everything. He pulled out a contract from his desk drawer, the legal language dense but straightforward. My fee is $15,000 as a retainer, plus 25% of what we recover. Given the strength of your documentation and witness testimony, I'm confident we can get your money back. The retainer would take most of my remaining savings, but what choice did I have? I signed the contract with steady hands, feeling something I hadn't experienced since leaving Dr. Ramirez's office. Hope. How long will this take? I asked. 2 to 3 months, depending on whether Marcus wants to fight it in court or settle quietly. Most people prefer to avoid public family disputes. I walked out into the Texas morning sun, Contract in my briefcase and something I hadn't felt in days burning in my chest. Marcus had made his choice. Now he'd live with the consequences. The next 3 days blurred together in a haze of paperwork and determination. Wednesday was for sorting. Thursday brought Hank and his memories. Friday meant final preparation for the legal battle that would decide whether I lived or died. My kitchen table disappeared under an avalanche of documents dating back to 2022, bank statements, canceled checks, email printouts, even old text messages I'd saved on my phone. Everything that proved Marcus had received a loan, not a gift. The old HP scanner I'd bought years ago for tax preparation wheezed to life, feeding page after page into digital format. Each scanned document went into a folder labeled Marcus Legal Evidence, then copied to email and sent to Hayes. The methodical process felt therapeutic, transforming 3 years of trust and disappointment into ammunition for the courtroom. Thursday morning brought Hank to my door, carrying 2 cups of coffee from the McDonald's down the street, and wearing the same concerned expression he'd shown when oil prices crashed, and we both lost our jobs in '08. "Vernon, this is a damn mess," he said, settling into my kitchen chair and surveying the paper battlefield. "But that boy made you a promise, and I heard every word of it." We spent 2 hours going through the details of that day in 2022. Hank's memory was sharp as a tack. He remembered Marcus sitting at this same table, real estate papers spread out like a poker hand, making his pitch for help with the down payment. "I remember that day clear as yesterday," Hank said, stirring sugar into his coffee. "Marcus said, 'Dad, this is a loan. I'll pay you back.' Those were his exact words." I pulled out my smartphone and showed him the text messages Marcus had sent afterward. Screenshots of promises, timelines, reassurances that the money would be returned within a year, maximum. Hank whistled low when he saw them. "Look at this text from him," I said, pointing to the screen. "Dad, I'll have your money back within a year, maximum. This house is going to change everything for Anna and the kids." Hank signed a handwritten witness statement, which we took to the bank to get notarized. The teller recognized both of us from our decades of doing business there, and she stamped the paper with official authority that made it feel real, legal, dangerous. Friday was for organization. Hayes had reviewed the digital files and called to express amazement at the thoroughness of my documentation. "Vernon, this is an exceptionally strong evidence package. We have documentation, witnesses, and electronic communications." "So we can win this?" I asked. "I'd be shocked if we lost." I organized the physical documents in labeled folders, photographed the smartphone screen showing Marcus's promises, and prepared copies of everything for court filing. By evening, I had 3 complete sets of evidence, one for Hayes, one for the court, one for my own records. I sealed the envelope containing 3 years of my son's lies and my own careful record-keeping. Monday would bring official consequences Marcus never saw coming. Hayes was waiting for me when I arrived at his office Monday morning, the evidence package tucked under my arm like battle plans. The weekend had crawled by with anxious energy, double-checking documents and rehearsing conversations that might never happen. "Excellent timing, Vernon," Hayes said, gesturing me toward his desk where a laptop computer sat open beside a stack of legal forms. "I've drafted the demand letter based on your evidence. Let me read you the key sections." He cleared his throat and began reading in his courtroom voice. "Mr. Soto, you are hereby formally demanded to repay the loan of $280,000 provided by Vernon Soto on June 15th, 2022, for the purchase of your residence. This loan was made with explicit promise of repayment, witnessed by third parties, and documented in your own electronic communications." The letter continued with legal language that made my chest swell with satisfaction. 30 days to respond. Full repayment demanded. Consequences of ignoring the demand spelled out in terms that would make a lawyer sweat. "I want him to know I'm serious," I said. "No more father-son games." Hayes made several revisions at my suggestion, strengthening the language and adding references to the witness testimony and electronic evidence. Each change felt like tightening the noose around Marcus's comfortable assumptions. The walk to San Antonio Central Post Office took 15 minutes through the business district, where lawyers and bankers hurried past with briefcases and important expressions. I carried my own briefcase now, containing legal papers that would explode my son's world. The postal clerk, a efficient woman with gray hair and government regulation patience, explained the certified mail process with thorough precision. Forms to fill out, tracking numbers to record, delivery confirmation options to select. Certified mail with return receipt, I specified. Adult signature required upon delivery. She stamped the envelope with official postal marks that made it look serious, federal, unstoppable. The address read clearly: Marcus Soto at his Alamo Heights residence, the house my money had purchased for his ungrateful family. Back at Hayes's office, we discussed strategy and timeline. Marcus would receive the letter Wednesday at the latest. He'd have until April 24th to respond with payment or legal counter-arguments. Hayes explained typical defendant reactions with the confidence of 3 decades handling family disputes. If Marcus ignores this letter, it actually strengthens our court position, Hayes said, organizing additional litigation forms for my signature. Good, I replied, signing each document with firm strokes. I want him to dig his own grave. The letter would reach Marcus by Wednesday. I could hardly wait to see how my son would react to his first taste of real consequences. 3 days of waiting had stretched like weeks, each hour ticking past with the slow precision of a clock in a doctor's office. I'd spent Thursday evening the way I'd spent most evenings since this began, eating a simple dinner while watching the news, trying to distract myself from the growing anticipation of Marcus's response. The phone rang at 7:30, cutting through a weather report about weekend rain. I recognized the number immediately, but let it ring twice more while I activated the recording app on my smartphone. Hayes had suggested this precaution, and I'd learned to take legal advice seriously. Hello, Marcus. How dare you? His voice exploded through the speaker with such fury that I had to hold the phone away from my ear. How dare you hire a lawyer against your own son? I kept my voice level, professional. You brought this on yourself. That money went into my house. I can't just liquidate $280,000 and hand it over to you. Do you have any idea what you're asking? I'm asking you to honor the promise you made 3 years ago. I watched the recording app's timer tick forward, capturing every word of his panic. The promise Hank Miller witnessed. The promise you repeated in text messages. A pause. Then Marcus's voice dropped to something dangerous and cold. If you go through with this legal action, I'll never speak to you again. You'll never see your grandchildren. Anna and I will cut you out of our lives completely. Then prepare for court, son. The threat hung in the air between us like smoke. I could hear him breathing hard, could picture him pacing around that expensive living room where he'd told me my life wasn't worth saving. You're destroying our family over money, he said, his voice cracking with desperation. You destroyed our family when you called my surgery a waste of money, I replied, when you said I'd lived long enough. I was upset. I didn't mean, yes, you did, and now you'll face the consequences. His voice rose again, becoming shrill with panic. I'll fight this. I'll get my own lawyer. I'll prove that money was a gift, not a loan. Good luck with that. Hank remembers every word you said. Your own text messages prove otherwise. Hayes is confident we'll win. Hayes? Who's Hayes? My attorney. You'll be hearing from him soon enough. The silence stretched long enough that I wondered if he'd hung up. Then Marcus spoke one final time, his voice hollow with defeat and rage. If you go through with this, you're dead to me. Permanently. I don't care anymore, I said, surprised by how true the words felt. You've already shown me exactly what I'm worth to you. The line went dead with a sharp click that sounded like a door slamming shut on 35 years of fatherhood. I labeled the audio file Marcus' Final Conversation and saved it to my legal documents folder. Tomorrow, Hayes would hear exactly what kind of son I'd raised. I hadn't slept much after Marcus's call, but I felt more awake than I had in weeks. The sleepless hours had been spent replaying his threats and admissions, each word adding steel to my resolve. By dawn, I'd organized my thoughts and documentation with military precision, ready for the legal battle that would determine whether I lived or died. The morning air carried a crispness that made everything seem sharper, more focused, as I walked toward the imposing limestone facade of the Bexar County Courthouse. Built in the 1920s, the structure commanded respect with its neoclassical columns and the carved words equal justice under law, etched above the main entrance. Hayes was waiting by the bronze doors, his briefcase in one hand and a manila folder, thick with our evidence in the other. "Ready for this, Vernon?" he asked, extending his hand with the firm grip of a man about to win his case. "More than ready. Let's make Marcus face the consequences of his choices." The security screening reminded me of an airport, but with the weight of Texas justice behind every procedure. Metal detectors hummed as they examined each person entering this temple of law. X-ray machines revealed the contents of briefcases and purses, while guards who'd seen every kind of family dispute imaginable maintained professional vigilance. My manila folder went through the scanner, like any other piece of business, but it contained 3 years of broken promises and documented lies that would soon destroy my son's comfortable assumptions. Inside, the courthouse buzzed with the quiet intensity of legal business. Lawyers in expensive suits hurried past, clutching case files, their heels clicking against marble floors that had witnessed decades of family destruction and reconciliation. Court reporters wheeled their stenography machines between courtrooms, ready to record the precise moment when relationships shattered under the weight of legal proceedings. The elevator climbed to the 3rd floor with mechanical precision, while Hayes reviewed our paperwork one final time. Bank statements showing the exact $280,000 withdrawal sequence, canceled checks made out to Marcus for his house down payment, witness statements notarized and signed, recorded phone conversations where my son had admitted his inability to repay and threatened permanent estrangement. Every piece of evidence methodically organized to prove that Marcus had received a loan, not a gift, and had explicitly promised repayment. "This is the strongest family loan case I've handled in 30 years, Hayes murmured as we approached the civil filing office. "Your documentation is exceptional." The filing office buzzed with bureaucratic efficiency. Clerks processed divorces, custody disputes, and property disagreements with the practiced indifference of people who'd seen families destroy themselves over money countless times before. Our turn came with the impersonal rhythm of government service. "Case number CV 2025-04821, the court clerk announced after reviewing our filing with professional thoroughness. Her voice carried the bureaucratic efficiency of someone who processed family destruction for a living, stamping each page with official authority that transformed personal betrayal into legal precedent. Soto versus Soto has been accepted for filing and entered into the court system. I signed the lawsuit documents with my own hand, each letter of my name feeling like a nail in Marcus's coffin of comfortable assumptions. The pen felt heavier than it should have, weighted with the knowledge that I was officially severing the last threads of our relationship, but he'd made this choice when he called my life a waste of money. The $500 filing fee came from my modest savings, a significant sum for a man living on a pension, but it felt like the best investment I'd ever made. Every dollar spent was a step closer to justice, a movement toward the surgery that would save my life. Hearing date is scheduled for Wednesday, May 15th, at 10 a.m., courtroom 204, the clerk continued, stamping our documents with official authority that made them part of the permanent record. Both parties will receive official notification by certified mail. 6 weeks. That should be enough time for the legal machinery to grind Marcus's defenses to dust, but would my failing heart last long enough to see justice served? As we walked back toward the elevator, a wave of dizziness hit me like a physical blow. The courthouse corridor tilted slightly, and I gripped the cold marble wall for support, trying to hide my weakness from Hayes. The stress of confronting my son's betrayal was taking its toll on my already damaged heart. "Vernon, are you feeling all right? You look pale." "I'm fine," I managed, though the tightness in my chest suggested otherwise. My vision cleared slowly, but the message was unmistakable. Time was running out faster than I'd hoped. "What matters is that the case is officially filed." Hayes studied my face with the concern of a man who'd seen clients collapse from stress before. His experienced eyes reading signs of medical distress I thought I'd hidden. 6 weeks gives us plenty of time to prepare. You should rest. Let me handle the technical details from here." 6 weeks, I repeated, settling onto a courthouse bench and watching lawyers and their clients stream past with their own family disasters. Each case represented someone's attempt to find justice in a world where the people who should love you most sometimes hurt you deepest. That should be enough time. The chest pain subsided gradually, replaced by a satisfaction deeper than anything I'd felt since this nightmare began. My son had made his choice 3 years ago when he took my money with promises he never intended to keep. He'd confirmed it when he refused to return it, calling my life a waste. Now the law would make the choice for him. We walked out of the courthouse into the Texas morning sun, my lawsuit against my son now part of the public record. 6 weeks to prepare for the fight that would determine everything: my health, my future, and whether justice could triumph over family betrayal. 6 weeks had passed in a blur of evidence review, witness preparation, and sleepless nights punctuated by chest pains I couldn't afford to acknowledge. The navy suit I wore to court was the same one I'd married Marcus's mother in 38 years ago. It still fit, though my reflection looked thinner, more angular, carved by stress and determination. Courtroom 204 felt like a cathedral of justice, with its high-ceiling American flag and the seal of Texas mounted behind Judge Patricia Morrison's bench. I arrived early and took my seat at the plaintiff's table, watching as Marcus entered with his attorney, a young man in an expensive suit who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. The tension between father and son filled the formal space like electricity before a storm. We hadn't spoken since that recorded phone call, and we wouldn't speak today except through lawyers and testimony. Hank Miller sat in the gallery behind me, wearing his best shirt and the expression of a man who'd never told a lie in his life. His presence felt like an anchor in turbulent waters, solid, reliable, unshakable. Hayes rose for his opening argument with the confidence of 3 decades in Texas courtrooms. Your Honor, this case is straightforward. Vernon Soto loaned his son $280,000 for a house purchase with explicit promise of repayment, documented by bank records, witnessed by third parties, and confirmed in the defendant's own electronic communications. Marcus's attorney countered with predictable arguments about family gifts and no legal obligation for repayment, but his heart wasn't in it. The evidence was too strong, too thoroughly documented. Mr. Soto Sr., Judge Morrison said, calling me to the witness stand, please explain to the court the nature of the funds transferred to your son. My voice was steady despite the pain in my chest. Your Honor, this was a loan with a clear understanding of repayment. My son asked for help buying a house, specifically calling it a loan he would repay within a year. The cross-examination was brief and ineffective. How do you argue with bank records and documented promises? Hank took the stand next, his weathered hands folded calmly as he spoke. I personally heard Marcus say, Dad, this is a loan. I'll pay you back. Those were his exact words at Vernon's kitchen table 3 years ago. The judge called a brief recess to review the evidence, and I sat in my chair fighting waves of dizziness that had nothing to do with the courtroom's atmosphere and everything to do with my deteriorating heart. When Judge Morrison returned, her expression was businesslike and final. Based on the evidence presented, bank records, witness testimony, and electronic communications, I find for the plaintiff judgment in the amount of $280,000 against the defendant Marcus Soto. The defendant has 30 days to satisfy this judgment, including options for property transfer or sale. The gavel fell with a sound like thunder, and justice was served. Marcus slumped in his chair like a man who'd just lost everything, which was exactly what had happened. Hayes shook my hand with genuine satisfaction. Congratulations, Vernon. Complete victory. But I had more urgent business than celebrating. I had a life to save. The next 2 months moved like a controlled avalanche. Court-ordered property transfer by June 15th. House sold to cash buyers by June 20th for $290,000. Surgery scheduled for June 25th. By August, I was home, healthy, and $10,000 richer than when this nightmare began. The notary office on Nacogdoches Road wasn't much to look at, but it was where Marcus signed away the house my money had bought. His hand shook as he initialed each page of the property deed transfer, his face gray with the realization that his comfortable life was ending. The property transfers to Vernon Soto, effective immediately, the notary announced with bureaucratic finality. Marcus didn't speak, What was there to say? The law had spoken for both of us. The cash buyers were investors from Austin who didn't care about family drama, just profit potential. They offered $290,000 for immediate closing, $10,000 more than Marcus owed me. Justice with interest. Dr. Ramirez welcomed me back to her office with professional satisfaction and personal relief. Mr. Soto, I'm delighted you found a way to proceed with the surgery. We can schedule you for next week. The triple bypass surgery was everything she'd promised. Complex, expensive, and completely successful. I woke up in recovery with a chest full of new arteries and the first pain-free breathing I'd experienced in months. Surgery was completely successful. Dr. Ramirez told me during post-operative rounds, "You have many good years ahead of you, Mr. Soto. Many good years." 2 months later, I was sitting on my front porch, enjoying the August evening, when a familiar BMW pulled into my driveway. Marcus got out, slowly, his expensive clothes wrinkled, his confident posture replaced by desperate humility. He approached like a man walking to his execution, stopping at the bottom of my porch steps, with his hands clasped in front of him like a penitent. "Dad," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "please forgive me. My family has nowhere to live." I looked at my son, 35 years old, defeated, learning the true cost of his choices, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. "You said I'd lived long enough," I replied, my voice carrying the weight of his own cruel words. "Now you can learn what that means." His face crumpled, but I felt no sympathy. He'd made his choice when he called my life a waste of money. Now he could live with the consequences. "Get off my property," I said quietly, "and don't come back." I watched him drive away in the BMW he'd probably have to sell soon, and realized that justice had been served completely. I was alive, healthy, and financially whole. Marcus was facing the consequences of his selfishness. But as I sat in the evening quiet, I understood the true price of my victory. Justice had won, but I'd learned that family could be the source of both the greatest love and the deepest betrayal. Some battles are worth fighting, even when winning costs you everything else. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.